We see a match-grade barrel that has 5 ports along the top to push the pistol downward and keep you on target. We also see a nice etched Tomahawk logo on the side. Now, I joked about it, but with 5 ports, there is a lot of gas and debris coming out the top of the pistol. So I'll say it for the second time, make sure you wear safety glasses. You should be wearing them anyway. I should be wearing them also. Just a reminder for all of us. Also though, if you're in a struggle with the bad guy, just point this toward the ground and then push his face to the ports and he'll have a super bad day. Probably a super blind day. I can't stay focused. I gotta keep going with this video. Hey Wizards, welcome back. Now recently I've shown you a whole lot of 2011s and I've really fallen in love with that combination of speed and precision that comes with that TAC 4 1/4. But realistically, those 2011s are kind of expensive and maybe you want something cheaper like a Glock or a striker-fired pistol that you could maybe just, work through upgrading later. Talking to Bul, I had brought up that I wanted to do some like Gucci Glocks or building up to Gucci Glocks and then comparing them to 2011. And Bul was like, hey, have you seen our Tomahawk? And I was like, no, what's that? So today we'll be looking at the Bul Tomahawk full size and see how it compares in terms of upgraded Gucci Glocks and if I recommend it as a cheaper option to 2011s. It seems like a fairly silly comparison, like a 2011 versus an upgraded Glock, but there are a ton of Gucci Glocks that are on the market that are like $2,500 to $3,000. And this Tomahawk is like $750. That's $200 more than a stock Glock Gen 5 for all the bells and whistles, like all of them. But I'm also trying to understand 2 things. Number 1, what the magic is with Gucci Glocks, and 2, where's the $2,000 that the other Glocks need to get to this level of performance? But before we get into that and really tear into it, let's take a moment and thank today's sponsor. Today's sponsor of Nocturn Industries brings you the next generational panoramic Chimera night vision to give you the first articulating quad nod device that also allows for individual pod stowage. From the beginner getting started in night vision to the professional operator, Nocturn Industry has you covered. I don't care who you are, I think we all recognize that those quad chimeras are absolutely nuts, and so is the price tag, so make sure to use discount code TLDO over at nocturnindustries.com. And big thanks to Nocturn for supporting the channel. Now, let's get into some of my biases. Bul was nice enough to send over this Tomahawk for review and for us to show off to you all, but I'll be honest, I'm not really a Glock guy. I mostly own SIGs, so I don't shoot a lot of Glocks, and normally I'd be hard-pressed to purchase this over something like a SIG X Macro. Now though, Jason has shot Glocks for years and just absolutely hates them, so naturally I want him to take a look at it. He's just gonna know a lot more about the nuances and the differences within a Glock that I just won't be as familiar with. Like how most Glock triggers are just big wet bits of trash that you all seem to be just perfectly fine with. So I will say I'm a bit biased against Glocks, so just like if I really did like them, I would still recommend you watch a bunch of other videos and you get the most educated stance you can get by watching a bunch of different reviews so that you can make the most educated purchase. We'll see how it does though, as the Tomahawk has quite the hill to climb to compete with my favorite of the Bul 4 1/4. Now I did ask how and why an upgraded Gen 3 Glock like this even exists. In the past, Bul had been flooded with requests from units like the Navy, who can't use hammer-fired pistols, to the IDF, who wanted to improve their already issued weapon systems. Now, you guys correct me down in the comments as I'm not much of a history buff, but from what I understand, Bul originally just helped out those IDF service members who wanted to have a more functional service pistol. But then when the Gen 3 patent was lifted, Bul built a pistol that had everything you could or would ever even want already included. Then in like SHOT Show 2018, no idea if this clip is the right one, Bul introduced a concept Gucci Glock that had an upgraded 1911 grip style. By now though, the 1911 grip angle has been copied like a ton of times, but none of the ones on the market now are actually 1911 grips, but We'll get into all that as we go through this. The platform, as I understand it, was originally designed to only be released in Israel, but there was so much demand that the Tomahawk and I think the Axe is the other one, were born. And I really do think they put the stamp on the idea of having everything you could or would ever possibly want already included. And I think you're gonna see all that. But first, let's take a moment. Let's just do some first shots out at the range. All right, initial 5-shot group with the Tomahawk. Just share my thoughts. So first thoughts, there is a lot of gas coming out. I'm kind of surprised by how well the ports are working. And yeah, it's staying pretty much on target. I'm pretty surprised. Let's do one more for initial shots. After that first magazine, I was definitely like, wait, one more time. Well, I will absolutely say to you right off the bat that it shoots dumb flat, and I hope the other Gucci Glock companies didn't invest the extra $2,000 in recoil management. But tell you what, let's look at this guy from head to toe, and then we'll go out and do some more shooting tests. All right, the reloads are just simple, easy too. All right, let's get to it. There's a ton of cool stuff for this price point, so let's just start with the slide. Here you'll see a stainless steel slide that comes with some slide customizations at the front barrel, along with the window opening for the ports. Yeah, it comes with ports, and there's 5 of them, and yes, they are nuts. Just don't be like me, kids. Make sure to wear some protective eyewear. The slide also has aggressive cuts along the rear, with the more pronounced cuts along the front of the pistol. Now, I heard you Glock guys do a press check like every round, and I'm totally making this up, but that's why they designed those. They are just for you guys. The slide also has a really nice overall matte finish that seems to grip right into your hand, making it easy to operate when dry or wet. The slide is just really remarkable when we start to look at this price point. For perspective, there are slides only mind you, that cost more than this entire pistol. And I have no doubt there's gonna be somebody in the comments who says those Gucci slides use different metals or something, and I don't know, it's gonna make all of us dumber. Trying to spare our brain cells though, moving to the sights, we see metal 3-dot sights that are fully blacked out. You can always change these out if you have different preferences, as it uses a standard Glock Gen 3 footprint. But this pistol, unlike the people on Facebook, is designed to be used with a red dot. So by having the irons blacked out, it allows you to just have one sight to focus on instead of having a bunch of dots in there too. And the more I think about it, maybe we should all start saying no to tritium. Use your flashlight to illuminate your target so you can actually see what you're shooting at if you're aiming in the dark. And honestly, I could probably go without irons altogether, but with having them blacked out is perfectly fine, and I could easily use them if my red dot went down for some reason. And speaking of optics, the Tomahawk uses the RMR footprint. And while there are a lot of different styles on the market, the RMR footprint really is the king out there right now. Big old sights like the Acro and the god-awful Steiner definitely have not won me over. The bulk is just kind of ridiculously stupid, and it's really, really distracting to have the whole thing obstructing your view like a whole battery tray is in the way of your target. Here I am making fun of other good optics, and I guess I gotta talk about this one. It's the Sai Lee, and it was around, it's literally on the table, so I put it on here. I mean, they sent it to me. Someone had to give Holosun a chance, right? So I figured I'd test this out and see. It has a plus and minus button similar to the Holosun with an equally copied battery tray. Looking at the reticle, yeah, same one. But mine seems to be canted off center at about 20 degrees, so yep, I just love that. It does have a nice channel to allow you to see your front sight, which is a bonus. And hey, another big bonus is that it also comes with every screw you could possibly need, which is slightly funny because the Amazon Sai Lee brand can send me every screw that exists, but the big brands are just super stingy and send me like, 2? This Sai Lee box though, it looks so ridiculous. Like if Donald Trump made an optic. It's America, but from China. So do I like it? No. And it did particularly bad when I had like the sun facing the front of the optic. I'll see if I can recreate it, but there's this horrible image of the electronics and everything else goobering up the whole view when you have light coming into the front of the housing. So hilariously, I'll keep the optic on there so we can make sure to capture Jason's opinion. Hey, congrats, buddy. I'm realizing I also went a bit sideways there as we're kind of min-maxing which Chinese optic you want to use, which is a little bit ridiculous. Either way, we gotta keep moving. I got a whole review still to finish. All right, here we go. Finally back on the Tomahawk, we see a match-grade barrel that has 5 ports along the top to push the pistol downward and keep you on target. We also see a nice etched Tomahawk logo on the side. Now, I joked about it, but with 5 ports, there is a lot of gas and debris coming out the top of the pistol. So I'll say it for the second time, make sure you wear safety glasses. You should be wearing them anyway. I should be wearing them also. Just a reminder for all of us. Also though, if you're in a struggle with the bad guy, just point this toward the ground and then push his face to the ports and he'll have a super bad day. Probably a super blind day. I can't stay focused. I gotta keep going with this video. Moving to the frame, we actually see the same aggressive texture we found on the TAC 4 1/4 that does such an amazing job at keeping the pistol planted in your hand. And if we gave out awards for grip texture, this one and the TAC 4 1/4 would win it for sure. Some other guns are just really bad, like stars and cookies and whatnot. What the hell is that supposed to be doing? Along this grip, we also see thumb rests on both sides to act as built-in gas pedals. The material is slightly cut inward to get a nice shelf for your thumb to fall into. The magazine release can be swapped to either side like I flipped it, and I was also told the controls were extended outward for easier use. Like I said, I don't really know Glocks, but these controls seem super nice, and hopefully Jason will be able to comment more on the nuanced differences. But you Glock girls out there, make sure to comment below if you notice some different changes on the normal Glock models. For the trigger, we have a flat aluminum trigger. From my test, I recorded it to be right around 4 pounds. The trigger falls back into the wall first, and then if you pull just a little bit more, it rolls over the sear and then has a nice clean break. Now, in that footage, I showed it to you really slow, but in normal shooting, you don't really feel that extra bit of the trigger rolling over the sear, but I want you to be aware that it's there. Like if you're getting to the wall on the trigger, it's actually a little bit past where you think it is. The reset is super tactile, and it is easy to get right back into the trigger and be back on the wall. We'll go out to the range and we'll do some rapid shot testing, but I will tell you right now that this micro analysis, like slowing it all down, I didn't notice any of that when we did our initial shots or when we did any of the other range shooting. So I guess we'll see. The entire grip has a more true 1911 grip angle than anything else on the market. You can see how the beaver tail tries to make it as true as possible. A ton of other companies out there, I'm sure I own a few of them, tell you they have a 1911 grip angle, but then have a straight beaver tail, and those companies they're just good at selling grips. At the bottom of the grip, we have the molded IPSC magwell with the cutouts for quick removal of mags. I found this was one of my favorite parts, as I could just do wildly stupid things and the mag would just seat correctly every single time. The 2 included mags have these wings along the bottom that have become my absolute favorite for kind of a surprising reason. Those mag wings make it incredibly easy to grab when reloading, giving you a clean place to grab on either side of the mag when pulling it from a mag pouch. I just love these, and yes, all the normal Glock mags also work on the Tomahawk, but you can also use these badass upgraded ones on all the normal Glock platforms also. All right, is that it? Oh, forgot one. Gotta talk about the rail. There's also an included pick rail on the front to attach your lights, and I used a Surefire X300 without any sort of issues. Now, some people are probably gonna ask about compatibility of parts, and that's something I'm really gonna have to lean into Jason for because he knows a lot more about that and plays a lot more with the Glock builds and all that stuff. One thing I do know though is it does use the standard Glock holster, so whatever normal Glock Gen holster you use, the Tomahawk should fit, I'm assuming. I will note though that everything you see on the Tomahawk has Glock parts, but they're all made in-house with tighter tolerances. So I don't know if everything Glock will actually fit. Like how it looks like a Gen 4 Glock magazine button, but it's not because it actually has the correct 1911 grip angle. Realistically, I'd like to see Jason swap out some different parts and some different triggers just to see how customizable it really is. I mean, it's already a little bit ridiculous in what it already has, but it would answer that question if somebody wanted to upgrade it into their personal preferences. But let's get into the actual shooting parts of this and go out to the range. For this first bit, I do actual draw to on target just to see how fast and easy that is to do. Here I'll say I found the Tomahawk to be super familiar. That more true-to-life 1911 grip angle made everything just flow, with the ports working to keep the whole pistol barely even moving. If you look, you can see it's jokingly easy to make fast and repeatable shots on target. The grip angle was different enough that I needed to relearn how to draw the pistol, so it was similar enough to be familiar, but then just different enough to throw me off a little bit. All right, for our next range test, let's do a little test where I do return to zero. And here what I do is I wait until the red dot actually comes and falls back on target, just to see how well the pistol does itself in recoil management and how much you have to control most of that. Here I found I could shoot quite fast, as the ports really made repeatable shots insanely easy, as you could just feel them driving the gun back down. Here I see I was smart enough to finally put safety glasses on too. I could almost run this at full speed, even waiting for the dot, and it's just this almost hilariously flat shooting pistol when you feel it. I'm not loving that optic with the sun making the electronics bloom in my view, but the whole thing makes me look like a way better shooter than I actually am. The whole pistol just snapped back to target without issue, and I'll bet the ability to shoot this thing flat is going to make it super fun when we try to do some fast shooting. First though, let's see how these mags do with some manual of arms tests out at the range. Here we'll set up for a 4 reload 3, and the return to zero and easy to use controls make this really simple. It just feels like the Tomahawk wants to tear through shots, even with my first day out with the pistol. The reloads felt clean and pretty effortless. Even I was kind of surprised by both the pistol's performance and mine when I was out at the actual range. Now though, let's test that trigger and let's see what it can do when we do some fast rapid shots. Besides my little hiccup there, you can see this trigger isn't an issue at all, and I definitely got the hang of it once I got used to this pistol. Overall, it was a really good shooting day, and from staying on target to reloads to rapid shots, it was all kind of like I was using a cheat code. So let's do some pros and cons of the Tomahawk then, and the first one I want to stop and just wow about is the price point. At $750, you're only $200 more than a standard Glock, and you get slide serrations, custom trigger, 1911 grip, enlarged controls, and just fantastic magazines. Now, I don't know what you get for $2,500 to $3,000 with Gucci Glocks, but I just can't wrap my head around that it's much better than this. At 4 times the price, I bet the crazy expensive ones are pretty similar to this in terms of performance. I mean, what are they gonna do? Shoot more flat? How? It's not even possible. Those ports absolutely do some crazy stuff when it comes to recoil management, and they're definitely my next pro. First, just having included ports at a $750 price point is insane, but the ports are also not completely round. Now, this is smart to allow for lighter 115 grain bullets to cycle correctly while working extremely great to control recoil. And you can actually feel it, like the actual ports pushing the pistol down at the front and getting you right back on target, and it makes for an absolutely stupid flat shooting pistol when you're out at the range. Looking it up, the window cuts and the barrel porting are about $200, so adding this feature of just the porting to a stock Glock is the same price as this entire pistol. But with the Tomahawk, you get more than just stock and slide cuts, you get all the crazy stuff too, like the next pro with this amazing grip. With a more true 1911 grip angle and aggressive texture, you get an S-tier grip for a budget price. giving you a system that just locks into your hand every time you grab it. And you have to really feel it to understand it, because when you grab this, you're like, oh, okay, that's what it's supposed to do. And it doesn't feel like my striker-fired pistols that have 1911 grips, like, like the P320 ones. Now, for my final big pro I want to talk about, now I could talk about a whole bunch of them, but it's gonna be the magazines, the magwell, and the enlarged controls. Those are they're just awesome. The magazines themselves function great to make reloading easy, but the wings on the side add in the magic, allowing me to grab them from a pouch or strip them from a magazine. The combination with the magwell and enlarged controls made for a system that was just silly easy to operate without having to have nuanced movements to botch it all up. It really does just super well, but all things in the world should have cons, and one I want to mention on this one is the trigger. I don't know if I'm just a trigger snob, but I found the wall into the sear roll to sometimes catch me off guard, and I had to just pull through the trigger instead of stopping at the wall sometimes. It was making me punch some shots as I was kind of feeling for this second wall that I would hit sometimes, and then other times that I wouldn't. The trigger, and again, it may not be a good comparison not knowing other Glock triggers, but it's just the only part of this pistol that when you feel it and use it, you're not like, wow, that is awesome. It's just so in the world of striker-fired pistol triggers, which I think Bul could do something much better. Now, the other con I want to talk about is the RMR footprint. As we talked about, I think RMR is king, but people love to have customization, and having just this one cut kind of locks them into their optics choices. And if you're wondering about the Siley, no, get a better Chinese optic. I mean, I like Holosun. I just didn't love this one. I'm just still laughing at how much I know Jason's gonna love this optic. Now, what about my thoughts? After having such a good shooting day and having so much fun with the Tomahawk, do I recommend it for you? And this is gonna shock all of you, but no, I don't. And I want to explain why, and that's because Bul is kind of like the Ferrari of guns. And Joe made a really good analogy about this that I think really rings true. It's like if Ferrari had 1 billion customers that all asked for a pickup truck, and then Ferrari made it for them. And me, I want the race car made by Ferrari. I don't want the pickup truck made by Ferrari. I recommend you save a little more and get some wild offerings like the Bul Tac 4 1/4. Yeah, 2011s are more expensive, but you get a better overall platform than an upgraded Glock. And yes, you have to actually clean them and oil them. I don't know what you're gonna be doing where you gotta use your sidearm for 1,000 rounds without taking a break. You know who I'm talking to. Clean your gun. Now, I will pause. If you are dead set on owning a Glock, or you're gonna end up getting a Gucci Glock or build up to one anyway, then absolutely yes, buy this one. In that vein, the Tomahawk offers insane features while being almost the same cost as a stock Glock, really asking the question of why you'd spend $2,000 more for similar performance. Like, what more do you really get? Logos and stickers, I guess? The Tomahawk is really nice though. I will say I'm a lot more excited to see what Jason's thoughts are, because he knows Glock so much better, and he's gonna know all those little nuanced differences and see those small things and be like, wow, this is really cool that they did that. So hold tight for that, but I hope this review of the Bul Tomahawk full size was useful in your purchasing decisions. I wanna say thanks to all of our Patreon and YouTube members. You guys make it possible we can do this whole channel and show off awesome pistols like this, and maybe even build a Gucci Glock to compare it against. And I wanna say thanks to everyone that likes, comments, and subscribes. Comment down below why you would build a Gucci Glock. I want to know that. I really do want to know why you would do that. All right, everyone. Walsh out. So, let me show you something. Not only was that a great group, not only was that fast shooting, I don't ever really do this, it is also a great group showing how good this gun does with those ports. So, yeah, all right, let's do some more. We got more of these things? How? Why? America, America. So ridiculous. All right. Why do we have another one? All right, get out of here.